to make a career out of enabling others to find and amplify their own voices.
My job is to help more people share what they already know, what they already do best. I say this a lot to people in my network who are on LinkedIn and maybe they don't share or don't contribute, and I say you have a ton of information and powerful things that you can say that's going to benefit you and the broader community. That's what I do.
A big part of Andre's mission is to support the creator economy.
To put it simply, the creator economy is the
Ząb mnie boli dalej. Nie byłem u dentysty. Znaczy byłem znowu wczoraj u dentysty.
To build an audience of people who are consuming that content.
Najbliższy termin na piątek i to jeszcze na rano.
Skręć w prawo.
Ja będę w robocie. Także musimy jechać do tego dentysty, co czyściłem zęby.
Za 800 metrów.
Ale tam jest do 19. I dzisiaj tam chyba nie zdążę. Bo dziś jadę chyba w góry. Także wrócę pewnie na 20. Także dzisiaj nie zrobimy zęba. No ale cel jest taki, że w tym tygodniu zrobić. No. Wczoraj w ogóle u pani dostałem telefon, numer telefonu do takiego dyżuru całodobowego zębowego. Mówi, że jak mnie bardzo boli, to żebym zadzwonił na ten numer.
Na rondzie drugi zjazd.
I tam jest, zawsze na tym numerze jest jakiś dentysta, który ma jakiś dyżur.
Every day, millions of people turn to LinkedIn to learn and talk about the things that matter in their lives, driving meaningful conversations that lead to opportunity. Join the conversation on LinkedIn.
Za 150 metrów na rondzie drugi zjazd.
No i w takich nagłych przypadkach można tam jechać.
A group of people standing at a podium, smiling, clapping in anticipation, all dressed up, giggling to each other. And then the person in front pushes a button. The opening bell of the New York Stock Exchange. This moment means that anyone can now buy a part of their company for the first time. Winning when they win, losing when they lose. And
wtedy przez telefon jakiś tam adres podają i się jedzie tam, gdzie jakiś lekarz ma dyżur po prostu. A ja stwierdziłem, że dzięki ziołom to nie muszę to mieć natychmiast zrobione. I pojadę sobie normalnie. Jak będę mógł. Do tego dentysty, co byłem, tam są raczej szybkie terminy. No i załatwię. No i tam nie jest tak drogo jak u innych dentystów. Tak mi się wydaje. No zobaczymy, jak będzie drogo. Tylko że tam jest kawał drogi, kurde, i to jest problem. I tak to bym może zdążył tam jechać. Tam jest do 19, a ja do 17 normalnie robię godzinę dojazdu. No nie wiem, czy ktoś tam będzie czekał na mnie do tak późno. A dziś w ogóle mogę jeszcze dłużej robić. Bo jadę w te góry.
Hi, this is Adam Grant, host of the TED podcast Work Life. This season, we work with our sponsor UKG to share amazing stories from their workplace. Stay tuned for a story from Brian, who's taking big strides to promote belonging.
Może już ładuję kalorie.
Hi, this is Adam Grant, host of the TED podcast Work Life. This season, we worked with our sponsor LinkedIn to share amazing stories from their community. Stay tuned for insight on how finding your voice can lead to opportunity from Andre, who's helping millions of people share their story.
we're looking to do is to really change the way
Za 600 metrów skręć w prawo w zjazd.
companies show up in the world. And in order to make that change, we have to think about the system in which companies operate. So when the focus is on quarterly reporting, that puts a lot of pressure on companies to behave in short-term ways and to make short-term decisions. And when
Skręć w prawo w zjazd.
that happens, we all lose. And so we want to change that kind of behavior by changing the whole system. And we want to create a different kind of financial market that allows for a different kind of capitalism. Now, the reason that a stock exchange is the way to do that is really for two reasons. The first is that if you want to change the system, you have to change the rules. And that's what stock exchanges do. They make rules. They make listing standards that companies that list on the exchange have to follow. And our rules are all geared toward that long-term focus. What we're trying to do is create a place where companies can maintain their focus on their long-term mission and vision, and at the same time be accountable for their impact on the broader world. So to make these rules, we created 5 core principles. And those core principles are really about how you can put them together to come up with a long-term system. And the core principles also have some specific requirements with them, and these requirements are very different than those of any existing exchange. So for example, companies that list with us commit to adopting publicly a policy on diversity and inclusion. And that's incredibly important in today's world, of course. Companies that list with us commit to investing for the long term in their employees. Also very important, and in the current system,
No kurde, nikogo nie ma na drodze, nie wiem czy to jest
and companies that list with us
droga
commit
widno.
to taking in a certain approach to the environment.
Wszyscy urlopy pobrali, tylko ja
there's
chodzę do
a bunch of
roboty.
other standards as well, but the broader point is that these standards taken together create a different
Drugi
kind
raz
of
jadę do
commitment
roboty.
that companies can make now, because it's a different set of rules than any stock exchange has.
Pusta droga.
And that commitment is the second reason that a stock exchange is important. We're in a moment where there's a real move to change capitalism. There's moves toward stakeholder capitalism, and there's a desire to really think about things differently. And it's become really difficult for a company that really means it and really intends to operate differently to distinguish itself. How can that company show that they're not just signing on to something because it's kind of the interesting thing of the day, but in fact they intend to operate differently? And listing on a stock exchange is a
No, w końcu jest trochę out.
It's a way to say publicly,
Jakiejś dziurze byłem.
we are not only operating this way today, but we intend to continue to operate this. That sends a really powerful signal. It's a powerful signal to a company's investors, to their customers, to their employees, and it's a powerful signal that those groups can then use to make decisions about what companies they want to invest in, what companies they want to buy products from, and where they want to work, because increasingly that really matters to people. I think we have an opportunity for a reset. We have a chance to really change our system. And if we can create a long-term focused system where companies are freed up to really make long-term choices, what those companies will end up doing is creating more long-term value. And that's good for companies, but they'll also do it in a way that's better for the rest of us. And this is the type of new system that we need. We need it because it's the right thing to do, but we also need it because it's the only way that we can create a system of capitalism that is more sustainable, more equitable, and something that will work for everybody. I feel optimistic. I feel optimistic that in this current moment, we can use this reset to change capitalism. And I think this is one area that we really can build back better.
Okay, so that was the lay of the land from Michelle. Now here's my question. How do you do that? How do you build a system that incentivizes for long-term goals? Goals that are lofty, goals that often require a lot of money and a lot of patience. In a Q&A, Michelle said their whole approach was built around one idea: principles.
Yeah, so we took a principles-based approach.
Ciemno już jest w ogóle masakra.
Really important to not
Całkowicie ciemno, jak się jedzie do roboty.
Long term in a retail company might be very different than long term in an energy company, for example, right?
These principles act kind of like a moral compass, a set of values
doesn't actually comply with a long-term principle.
So environmental impact fits under the first principle, which is all about stakeholders. So if you list on the LTSC, you have to develop a policy for how you invest in employees, support diversity and inclusion, and once you figure out those policies, you publish them. So your investors understand what your long-term vision is and can help you reach those goals. Got it? So the first principle, stakeholders. And now what's the second principle? Long-term decision making. So you have to figure out, what does success look like for your company in the long term? How does your company even define long term?
That's an important part of kind of rewriting the narrative and getting to the point where we could be talking about success in a more meaningful way than quarterly financial results.
So all of this sounds pretty good. But aren't there other ways to incentivize more long-term thinking? I chatted with Corey Hagen, who's Ted's business curator, about what another exchange is doing right now.
I want to contrast it with the announcement that NASDAQ made recently, where they've proposed a rule that their listed companies must have at least one woman on the board and a second member of the board who represents some other minority population. And I'm interested in what you think about that kind of line in the sand versus a principles-based approach. And I will add that of the 3,000 listed companies on the NASDAQ, they've estimated that it's something like 3/4 of those companies wouldn't meet that target. So other than the fact that that's a shocking sort of fact and statistic, do you think it's better if, an exchange just says, hey, here's what you need to do. We want this number. Or do you think it should be up to the companies themselves to sort of set those goals for themselves?
Well, I wish life was easy enough to be like it should be either or, but don't we know that the answer is it depends? Mm-hmm. And I think for decades we've been trying to get companies to be more environmentally friendly, to include people of color and women, and the needle hasn't moved as quickly as it can or should, and as a result we need to do harsh, intense things that motivate that not been met. But I also do think that there are other organizations and other systems where allowing people to set those rules for themselves is helpful too. So I think context is everything. So let me explain what I mean here by context. Imagine you have two different schools. Collective environment, you can get away with having principles, but in a different kind of environment, you likely need rules. But is it worth the effort to build a whole new exchange? Or is it better to throw our energy into improving the exchanges we already have?
Should we just push the NASDAQ to do more of this kind of thing? Should we just lobby the NASDAQ to make more and more of these kinds of rules changes because they have the market, they have the existing companies? Or do you think to really get things moving, we need a whole new system? Like, when do we just change the rules and when do we change the whole system?
You change the rules in the way NASDAQ has done when, after decades, and the push towards racial and gender inequity has been met with resistance and change hasn't happened. Mm-hmm. That's when you change the rules.
Right.
Because the old rules aren't working. They gave people freedom before. It's not working because there are underlying things that prevent it from working. So we need both. Then we need to also say, okay, well, what does it look like to start from scratch? What would we want from scratch to then incentivize people to engage in the behaviors we want them to? And the LTSC is starting from scratch, and so it's saying, hey, let's try out giving people freedom and the opportunity to choose for themselves, and let's see how that works. History would say it might not work, but they're saying we are going to select and only invite in the people that are able to do this. So when you can cherry pick, then you can rely on people doing what's right and what's aligned. When you can't necessarily cherry pick and choose who's on your exchange in some ways, then you have to institute freaking quotas. Right. One thing I also know is that we are followers, and if you see other people doing something and it's working or they're getting rewarded, then other people will follow on, and so we need to think about that in terms of motivation too.
Right. It's a really interesting dynamic because if we get the LTSE up and running, and if it picks up, it gets really popular, then the NASDAQ will probably also be more motivated to move in that direction. And maybe there's a quota around board diversity, but then maybe something else happens with executive compensation or carbon targets, things like that. So I feel like you're right. Whenever we want to change something huge, something like capitalism, we're going to need both the innovation and like the brand new playing field and a brand new system, and then we're also going to need people in the existing systems to push forward in whatever way they can.
So look, I'm all for anything that helps organizations be more ethical. But will the LTSE disrupt at a level we need it to disrupt? That I'm not so sure about, but I really hope so. And by the way, the LTSE was approved to launch in 2019, which means they're now in conversations with companies preparing to list. And here's what I'm going to be looking for. Will large old school firms decide to list? Because A, I think they're in the need of the most change. And B, if they move, whole industries will move with them. And another question I want to ask, will the LTSE really make a difference since companies can do a list? If companies are trading their stock on both the LTSE and other exchanges, are they really free from short-term pressures? We're going to have to wait and see. That's it for today. Our producer is Kim Nader-Fane-Peterson. Dan DeZula is our mixer. And special thanks to Michelle Quint, Ian Manchang, Anna Phelan, and Colin Helms. And as always, you can email us at business@ted.com to say hello, let us know what you're thinking, and tell us anything you'd like to hear on future episodes. I'm Madhu Bag.
Połączenie GPS zostało zerwane.
My sister and my grandparents were very, very, very close. So there was a lot of love in the home.
Meet Brian Reeves. His family dreamed of giving him a chance at a better life. Eventually, he saved up enough money for private school. So in 7th grade, he sent him to a school across town in Hollywood Hills. Brian was the only black student in his class. He had to take a 2-hour bus ride to get there.
It was surreal, words I would use now, because number one, riding the bus through the various neighborhoods of Los Angeles, you just saw the world much differently. The regular people jump on and off the buses every day. And then as you got a lot closer to Hollywood, the people that were jumping on and off the bus looked a lot different.
Brian relied on wisdom from his grandmother, who was affectionately known as Big Mom.
Za 50 metrów na rondzie drugi zjazd.
Big Mama was small in stature, but she was huge in wisdom. One of her famous
Za 500 metrów zjedź w lewo.
things that I didn't understand at the time, but I became to understand it is color is one sense away from being non-essential. Basically meaning if we all were blind and we didn't have a sense of sight, you wouldn't be able to tell if somebody was black or white or brown.
Brian studied computer science and built a successful career as a software engineer. A few
Zjedź w lewo.
years ago, as a senior product and innovation executive, he made a pivot.
I had the great privilege to be UKG's first belonging diversity and equity officer. I still think of myself as an engineer. I'm just now focused on much more complex business problems.
Psychologists find that
Ale tu jest ciemno w Szwajcarii, ja pierdzielę.
so I love that it's in Brian's
Zobaczcie,
title.
w ogóle drogi nie są oświetlone. Nic, ani jednej lampki nie ma na drodze.
And it's so important. I mean, there's ways to measure diversity, there's ways to measure equity, but in the end, if someone feels as though they belong, that is the most important thing.
Brian believes a major goal of his work is to help others move from awareness.
Tyle czasu tu mieszkam i jeszcze się nie mogę do tego przyzwyczaić.
This requires us to expand our circles of concern.
Jak to na drodze może nie być żadnej lampki?
For different sets of people, for folks that aren't like you, so out of every bad thing
Jeszcze na
that's
takich
happened
krętych drogach, jak
in
są w
life and
Szwajcarii.
society, there's always some good things that happen, and I'm hoping that our belief in, that we're all in the same boat with this one, we have greater empathy and the will to have everyone thrive.
Brian understands that our professional lives and personal
equity of compensation, equity of well-being. These things are important, and that will be my legacy.
It's a legacy that would make Big Mama proud.
It should be about bringing people together and leaning into difference as a strength. Just because someone doesn't look like you doesn't mean that they won't be nice to you or they can't be your friend, and vice versa. Just because someone does look like you doesn't mean they're automatically your friend. For all the investments that my family has made into me, I feel as though this is how I give back to them. So I hope I'm making them proud.
No matter who they are or what job they do, your employees deserve to feel supported. That's why UKG gives you all the necessary tools to help them thrive. Learn more by visiting ukg.com.
Za 3 kilometry zjedź w prawo.
And always cared a lot about helping people advance in their careers, helping people find their voice.
Meet Andre Santala.
And now I was able to do that type of work and also focus on the content space as well.
As the global head of community and creators at LinkedIn, Andre helps people share their insights. His passion for helping people find their voice is rooted in his own college experience. He couldn't afford to go to school out of state unless it was on a scholarship.
Actually kind of helped build my voice because I had to show up to any of the scholarship interviews. I had to write a lot of essays. And actually I remember this process being pretty formative in how I identified myself to other people. I grew up in a pretty conservative, cultural, Cuban household, Hispanic household. I identify as a gay man. I had my own challenges coming out that way. And if I didn't have someone else tell me that, hey, you have a voice, here's how you build it up, I absolutely would not be where I am today.
It's that kind of support that inspired Andre to make a career out of enabling others to find and amplify their own voices.
My job is to help more people share what they already know, what they already do best. I say this a lot to people in my network who are on LinkedIn and they don't share, they don't contribute, and I say you have a ton of information and powerful things that you can say that's going to benefit you and the broader community. That's what I do.
A big part of Andre's mission is to support the creator economy.
To put it simply, the creator economy is the ability to put your voice out there, to create content regularly, to build an audience of people who are
Za 600 metrów zjedź w prawo.
consuming that content, to then turn that into a community, and then eventually be able to actually build a business or even monetize that community.
Andre works closely with plenty of creators on LinkedIn. One who stands out is Kevin Perry, a stop-motion animator.
Zjedź w prawo.
Kevin Perry has been creating content about what he does. He just started doing behind-the-scenes content of, hey, I'm going to turn this desk into a banana.
Za 400 metrów skręć w lewo.
It's not to make you laugh, it's to show you that I can do that. This is a skill, and I use this in my day-to-day.
The creator economy is about more than creating content. It's about creating
Skręć w lewo.
opportunity. And there are a variety of tools on LinkedIn that can help creators achieve that opportunity.
We work with Kevin a lot. He said to us, 10,000 eyeballs on LinkedIn are 10,000 people to potentially hire me.
The ability to communicate is always in demand. Showing potential clients, employers, or colleagues that you have a story to tell or an insight to offer can open unexpected doors.
Once it clicks and once you start doing it enough times, it becomes easier and it just
Za 600 metrów na rondzie drugi zjazd.
pounds. And before you know it, you are regularly not just sharing content, you're contributing to conversations, you're learning. There's so much learning that can be done through just the art of sharing and writing. Before you know it, you have an audience, a community, and who knows, maybe before you know it, you have a business. This is an $104 billion economy. There's over 50 million creators, and I think we're just scratching the surface there.
Every day, millions of people turn to LinkedIn to learn and talk about the things that matter in their lives, driving meaningful conversations that lead to opportunity. Join the conversation on LinkedIn.